Dariusz, we can start.
Okay, now? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have the pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Association of Sustainability Development Experts to the 7th series of the webinar on circular economy, which can play an important role in the recovery of Ukraine after the conflict. This series of seminars, Association is broadcasting every month. So if you are interested in environmental, social, governance issues, which can help business practices in Ukraine, please follow the website of the association, and you will learn of the seminars which will be coming up. First, let me just say a few words about the Association of Sustainable Development Experts. It's an organization which was established in 2020 with the goal to promote environmental, social governance practices among various entities in Ukraine, help businesses to absorb these issues, help Ukraine to fulfill commitment of the Paris Agreement and various other international agreements associated with sustainable development goals. It is clear the mission is to network, to promote education, to develop international profile. We are working in several countries. As you can see, we have many experts in Ukraine and international experts. We are associated with various organizations. So association is expanding. It's expanding, but it has played already a very important role. And just let me mention a few. After the conflict started, after the war started, association did an assessment of the needs, the new baseline, the needs of SMEs, the needs of agribusiness companies, so contributed significantly to the development of the sustainability agenda in Ukraine. And association organized last year in the first International Sustainability Forum, which as an outcome of which there was a white paper which contributed to the development of programs for the recovery of Ukraine with the green principles. This year, we are also planning to have the second International Sustainability Forum. This will be a two-day event, and there will be two geographies. There will be first day in The Hague and the second in Kiev. So please follow our website, and there will be more information about the Sustainability Forum. This will be a very important event, trying to bring various players who can contribute in a meaningful way in the green recovery of Ukraine. So, without further ado, let me concentrate on the seminar which we have at hand today. This is a Circular Economy for Sustainable Economic Recovery, Transformation of Businesses and Practices in Ukraine in light with the principle of the circular economy. So first, I would like to present to you our distinguished speakers. The first I want to present is Olena Masliukiwska, who is an associated professor of the Department of Ecology in the National University of Kiev-Mykola Academy. She is also a visiting researcher at the University of Vaasa in Finland and chairman of the supervisory advisory board of the Association of Sustainable Development Experts. The next speaker will be Mikhailo Korniev. He's head of the Open Data Expert Group of the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. Mihailo will share with us thoughts about what is currently being done, what could be done, what needs to be done in Ukraine in terms of development of digital platforms, which are essential elements of circular economy and circular business models. Then there will be also Andriy Knapp, who is an analyst of Waste Ukraine Analytics, circular economy expert, and also an expert of our association. And finally, the humble myself, I am also on the board, supervisory board of the Association of Sustainable Development Experts. I spent most of my professional life at the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, recently for the last 10 years heading environmental and sustainability department. But after retiring from EBRD, I embarked on promoting circular economy. I am a member of the UN Advisory Board on Circular Economy, and I'm also involved in concrete programs. In particular, recently, during the past years, I've been involved in Georgia in mapping circular economy, in developing a circular economy project, and launching general awareness. So without further ado, let me just go to the presentation. If you don't mind, I will have the first presentation. I cannot get to. All right. I have problems with sharing the screen with the second presentation. Jana, can you help me with this?
But you have all rights for sharing.
Okay.
Now we see.
You can see it. Okay. Now I have to go to the slide mode. Bear with me on these technicalities.
Just start this presentation from.
Yeah. Okay. That's not this presentation. Sorry.
Can you try press F5? That should work.
F5, okay.
And now F5. No.
No.
Okay.
Doesn't work.
You know what? There is another life hack if it doesn't work now. If you open full screen before sharing and then share, then it will work. You just open in your computer, full screen, and now share.
Okay. Can you see it?
Not yet.
No.
No, just share it now. Share it through Zoom.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Oh, jeez. Hang on a second. I'll probably need to close the previous presentation. And this will work. Can you hear it now? See it?
Yes, it's not full screen though.
Okay. Is it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Sorry about this, technicalities. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce the circular economy principles before we give the floor to our distinguished experts. So, first of all, let me just highlight few things which Ukraine is sharing in addition to the tragic situation of the war which is happening, but certain trends are similar to the trends which are present elsewhere. I'm not going to talk about climate change and loss of biodiversity. You all know about this. What I wanted to concentrate is that there are significant demographic changes. We are moving to towns. We are living in urban areas. We are living longer. We are having more expectations. We are also experiencing a rapid technology development, not technology development that improves the technologies which did exist before, but there are different technologies, disruptive technologies, which are doing things differently, different business models. All this is exercising pressure for more resources, and these resources are not infinite. We have to concentrate on using resources wisely. That's why we have this concept of green economy, where we are talking about green products, where we are talking about consumer awareness, we are talking about sustainable use of resources, we are talking about fair pricing, green financing. These are all important elements of how we should approach our future. There is also a very important element that we should actually use resources in a better way. A way that when we produce things, that we preserve their value, that we use them, that we can repair them, that we can preserve the value which is created in the production process. And what is happening now? We are living in the linear economy. Linear economy, that means we are extracting resources, we are making goods, and after the useful time, we are disposing them off. This is not sustainable. And this is a dominating model which dominates clearly how we do things and what we do. So just let me highlight that, first of all, in this linear model, we utilize non-renewable resources, so we are wasting them, and they are being exhausted very quickly. By the way, many resources which are used in modern technologies, like certain type of metals, it is predicted that we will exhaust them completely if we stick to linear economy in a few years' time. This will definitely lead to disruption of the markets. In linear economy, what we prioritize is the sale of products. When we sell the products, this is the end of producer's responsibility. Again, this is a wrong thing, because producers should approach their products in a life cycle manner. That means take care of what is happening after the product is sold. But the linear economy is not promoting this type of a behavior. Moreover, in linear economy, we fail to collaborate. We fail to innovate and to adapt. If something is good, we continue doing this, and we are doing this in certain silos. So, as I already mentioned, there are certain elements which result from this linear economy. First of all, if we are using resources which are becoming scarce, and may I remind you, the beginning of the pandemic, when actually the whole medical equipment started to be scarce, and there was complete disruption of the supply chain, there was complete disruption of the cooperation channels. what is happening when something is becoming scarce? There is price volatility. There are protectionist trade barriers. Operationally, the supply chain failure and the production may stop if we don't have resources. And of course, there are significant business risks. Moreover, there are legal trends to introduce certain type of behaviors, and many of those are coming from the European Commission in legal forms, like extended producer's responsibility, where if we don't adapt, then companies may actually face bankruptcies. So what is the panacea? What is the solution? It's clearly the concept of circular economy business models, where we regenerate natural resources, where design outweighs. In true circular economy, we don't have any waste. But obviously, there is intermediate stage where we have to cope with the waste and try to use them as potential resources. And this is a system where we keep products as long as possible. So what is it based on? It's based on new business models. First of all, service-based business models. Then new designs and specification, designing for longer life, designing for reuse, designing for reparability, and designing for material recovery. And also another principle of circular economy is lean manufacturing. We are using as little resources as it is feasible. New products, and this is one of the requirements, I'll say a few words about this, of the new Circular Economy Action Plan, are designed that reduces virgin material consumption and waste generation. New business models are applied across the economy, but listen, if we think about circularity and moving to circularity, we have to think systemic, but we have to find low-hanging fruits where the circular economy has the greatest potential. And we are trying to close material loops. That way, what are the key drivers for this? The key drivers I already mentioned, when I was talking about the trends, that there are a few things. First of all, it's the resource scarcity. Then there is technological development. We are talking about various platforms, and I hope we'll hear about this from Mihailo. We are talking about 3D printing. We are talking about artificial intelligence, something which scares many people, but this is something which is there, which is going to disrupt things, how we do things. And there are these socio-economic developments, which are, we are moving to urban areas. By 6 in 10 people will be living in urban areas in 2030. This is, I put on the slides several sort of information sources. This is something called the butterfly diagram, which was developed by Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which shows that we are trying to mimic in our economic activities what is being done in nature. And by the way, nature doesn't generate any waste. Nature copes with waste in a way that uses them as product, as resources. We are trying to mimic this. We are trying to maintain things for as long as possible, reuse or redistribute, refurbish, remanufacture. Shorter the cycle here, smaller the loop, more effective is the system. We are trying to reduce number of things which finally end up in landfill. So what we are trying to do in a linear economy, we, at the moment of throwing away a product after its useful time, we are trying to preserve the value through all these measures, which I have just mentioned. In terms of the actions by the European Union started the concept of circular economy only in 2015. So look, all countries are actually who are implementing this, they are learning. They are learning. Those who started early, you know, they made some mistakes, did things in suboptimal way, but we are learning from their experience, and Ukraine is in a very good position actually to utilize all these lessons learned by other countries. So 2015, but in 2020, the Commission took stock of what has happened and came up with a so-called new circular economy action plan, which is a pathway for the European Union and associated countries and candidate countries like Ukraine to actually be fit for the green future. It focuses on production for circular economy to ensure that the resources are kept in EU economy as long as possible. Sustainable products are going to become the norm in the European Union. They will be easier to keep them for longer. They will be easier to reuse them, repair and recycle. There will be empowerment of consumers. You already see this in many labels where actually you see how the product was made, and there will be informed consumer choice of the product. There will be focus on sectors where which are resource intensive and use a lot of resources to actually slow down this use or make it more efficient and ensure that there is less waste. Here we have a list of the priority focus sectors, and this is what needs to be done in Ukraine in the future. There has to be a thorough analysis, and I know that Andriy is going to make a few suggestions which sectors are priority sectors at this very stage. However, for proper identification of the measures, you will need to do the proper mapping of industries in Ukraine with their circularity potential. At the European Union level, we have electronics, batteries and vehicles, packaging, plastics, textiles, construction buildings, which is probably also a very important topic, and food, how we use food, how we use packaging for food. I wanted to mention that when we analyzed how circular economy is going to contribute to the to fulfill the commitment of international agreements like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we've found that at least 12 Sustainable Development Goals are significantly, circular economy is contributing to 12 out of 17, which is very significant. If you want to meet these international agreements, there will be significant contribution from the circular economy. Few words about the type of models. There are 4 typical models of circular economy. There are circular design models. These are where we are trying to design products that they last longer, they could be repaired. There could be optimal use models. The optimal use models is using goods, services in an optimal way. And here, circular economy digital platforms are very important. I'll give you here an example. Do you know how much is an average car used in the European Union? It is used 7% of its useful time. 93% it's parked somewhere. Is it an optimal use of using a car? Probably not. If you had an app on your phone which would enable you to use a car when you need it, you would probably go for something like this. The same is with, do you need to be an owner of a washing machine, or can you actually if you want to have your clothes clean, instead of being an owner of a washing machine, maybe leasing a washing machine for a monthly fee, which is much lower, and there is an existing system in the Netherlands, could be more optimal. And again, value recovery models, this is, reusing after the life finishes, reusing components of the product. There is also another model called circular support models. These are models which provide incentives, which provide information, which provide technological support for businesses. So this is the soft type of models. Few facts for you. Unfortunately, the world is going backward. I mean, in 2018, the world was 9.1% circular. It dropped in 2020 to 8.6, and now it is only 7.2. There could be objective reasons, but we have to show more efforts to actually increase the circularity. What else I wanted to say? When we are talking about commitment regarding climate change, we are concentrating mostly on energy, promoting renewable energy, trying to eradicate fossil fuels. This is all needed, but the research shows that 70% of our commitment comes how we handle materials, how we produce, how we use materials. So it is a very important element that introducing circular economy can contribute to the climate adaptation, to the climate, to halting climate change to the degrees which are acceptable to us and our planet. So we need to go circular for this. So this is what we are trying to do, move from linear to circular economy. And again, I wanted to stress a few things. Design and organizational governance is very important at a country level, at the company level. There has to be strong leadership in terms that we need champions who champion this, who actually believe in this, and who sort of contaminate with this enthusiasm others, and they follow suit. We need proper communication, how to do it, what to do, why it is important. So we need general awareness raising, but we also need awareness raising with particular target groups who are decision makers, who are actually introducers of the new measures. We also have to anticipate unexpected things and don't think that everything will go smoothly. I wanted to show you there is some simplicity in what can be achieved in circular economy, and this is from 2022 Circularity Gap report. They have identified 21 actions which are essential for actually contribution to challenging climate change issues. And if you look at these actions which they listed, they are simple and there is nothing complicated. The question is that it needs to be implemented in a very systematic way. It has to be, we have to concentrate on low-hanging fruits and simple things. And look, vehicle durability or circular vehicles, what I mentioned, optimal use of car. In terms of housing, building passive houses where the energy is actually conserved as much as possible, using sustainable materials, local materials for building materials, utilizing the existing construction materials which lost its usefulness at this very stage. Reducing travel. Look, we are having this webinar now. We are all meeting. We love each other, but we don't need to meet in one place. Of course, we are humans. We want to meet, but we can reduce this. So these are 21 actions. I refer you to the Circularity Gap report. It elaborates how much any of these actions is going to bring reduction of CO2, how much it is going to reduce material use. So finishing my introductory statements, I wanted to conclude this, that we generally need to use less, in terms of materials, how we produce things. We try to use things longer, slow down the wastefulness which was dominating linear economy. We have to do it in a cleaner way, so reducing emissions and reducing material use, and try to use this again so we preserve value. So at the end, I want to mention that what is really important, that we need to focus on digital platforms, which are the future of these technologies. We need to measure how we are changing. Metrics is very important, but we also need to do whatever we do in a socially responsible way. So we don't leave anyone behind. It has to be done with this in mind when we introduce new measures. With this, I thank you very much for your attention, and I am quitting the presentation. I wanted to invite as a first speaker Olena, who is going to share with you the work which she has been carrying out as a visiting scientist, and she will also tell us a few words how these could be implemented in the Ukrainian reality and how Ukraine can benefit from these measures. Olena, with further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Darius. Dear participants, I have a little bit unstable Wi-Fi, so if I a little bit freeze, I'll switch to the phone, but please bear with me because I'm in the place where internet is a little bit limited. So those of you who know me for some time, you know that I've been always interested in how government can introduce policy actions that could stimulate businesses, society, like consumers, like everybody to behave in the environmental sustainable way. So currently, as a visiting researcher in Finland, of course, I'm interested in circular economy, what kind of instruments are being used on the level of European Union and Finland. And also what I would like to do is to cover two kind of questions, discussion questions that we have as part of this webinar. One on the policy and regulatory measures, and another one on the cooperation between businesses, government, and civil society. So like circular economy has been around actively pretty much for the last 20 years, and there is already kind of academic research that tells that despite all the efforts, we are still living in the linear world. And, you know, there is this one of this called the so-called Jevons paradox. This basically says that the more resource efficient we become, the more affordable energy and resources are, and the more people use it. And that is why we see that circular economy principally fails in preventing or mitigating this Jevons paradox, this rebound effect. And actually, all academics say that we need more profound changes. And if you look at the empirical evidence, you know that circular economy is part of the European Green Deal, but the recent research shows that EU has very ambitious policy initiatives, but it lacks focus on downsizing the linear economy. And the research on 28 EU countries shows that this economic growth contributed 4 times more in resource extraction. So basically, it doesn't work. So EU speaks about ambitious targets, but in fact, we are doing poorly, as Darius said, that actually a circular economy is even shrinking. So that is why there are basically, if you like listening to not only to researchers, but to policymakers, they say that, well, we need to develop better policy actions as a comprehensive and effectively implemented kind of catalyst for circular economy. And we want this to become that there is just transformative change. We cannot really afford as the humanity, as a human society, to make like little steps. We really need transformative changes, move quicker. And the most kind of effective way how do you do it is through policy actions, as a specific set of actions to enforce a policy rule. So it could be legislation, regulations, program, fiscal measures, standards, policies, guidelines, voluntary actions. I mean, that's just named a few. And these policy actions need to be integrated along the value chain, first of all, as you see on this picture, on this figure, across sectors and across material streams. So, for example, you see production sector, so you need to implement, the government needs to implement tax reform, conduct industry capacity building, and implement extended producer responsibility. And the question is, so what kind of policy actions do we need? And the second question, do current policy actions really help us to promote higher retention of value, what Darius was talking about? And how you, maybe I'll switch my video off. So how you basically evaluate these policies is if you look at this, this is called 9 R's. Of course, you heard 3 R's, but there are 9 R's. And you see that the lower the R is, the more circular economy is. Like, we would like to focus on refuse, rethink, reuse. And of course, and then on the industrial level, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose. And interestingly, that the last one, the recycle and recovery, those are the R's that are being the mostly used. So if you look at the policy actions, at the policy instruments, they are focusing on European level on recycling and recovery. But as you see that it's kind of more instruments for, like, we are still preserving linear economy. And if you look at this, another slide, it basically shows that if you want to move up on the R towards reduce and rethink, it's not enough to change the core technology, but you need to innovate in enabling technology, in product design, in revenue models, and socio-institutional changes. That's what actually Darius also commented. But I want to illustrate that existing policies, whatever we have now in Ukraine or in the European Union, doesn't matter. They primarily focus on lower, like higher R's, recovery and recycling. And this is not really circular, because recovery is primarily waste to energy, so it's not circular. And also recycling, I mean, there is a limit to recycling. Of course, if you, especially on plastics, we are not talking about the metals here, but still there are limits to recycling. And what we want to achieve that, you know, there's on this middle level R's, R3, R7. And also, of course, the most effect will be achieved if we learn how to refuse, rethink, and reduce. So the policy instruments vary. There are lots and lots of them. So, and there is not a magical bullet that we can, you know, apply. And for each society, there is a need to discuss. So I'm giving you the list. But there are 2 research that I found that actually shows that to promote circular economy, especially in cities, there is this list of policy instruments. It's, of course, waste-related taxes, public procurement regulation, carbon trading, eco-design regulations, custom tariffs, legal guarantees, and value-added tax. Also, if you look at the instruments along the value chain, you see that on the production level, it's good to have circular design standards and norms. On the use consumption level, it's circular procurement, which plays a crucial role. End of life, you have VAT, liberalization of waste trading, circular trading platforms, eco-industrial parks. Then for the entire life cycle, it's important to have, of course, marketing, promotion campaign, and material flows accounting. One thing that, so regulation is one thing that currently policymakers on the European level say that we need stricter, like more comprehensive policy actions. Another part is green finance, because we understand that transforming to circular means money. There should be public spending on green infrastructure. And for Ukraine, it's very important. We are going to basically rebuild our infrastructure almost from scratch. So this is a unique point for us. There need to be new product subsidies. And again, when Ukraine rebuilds its business, we understand that we would like to build companies of tomorrow, not the companies of yesterday. And in subsidies, this is something that would help these companies to launch their innovative processes and products. Then research and development, of course, and capital investments. But on the international level, this green investment cap is still large. So on the global level, but Ukraine, I think, has a very unique opportunity taking into account the commitment that we have from many our international partners. This green financing, what is important, it's not just loans, but recently green finance became kind of an instrument, a tool, a strategy to address environmental problems. It's like what happened with public procurement. It was public procurement, and then it became sustainable public procurement or green public procurement, and it became not just the way how government purchases or companies purchase goods and services, but it's an instrument to achieve environmental goals. So green finance is extremely on the early stage, but it's crucial for circular economy. And the limits are, very typical for Ukraine and for international, as you see from the research, in insufficient macroeconomic policy guidelines, lacking economic sector building and financial institutions development, low percentage of capital market financing, and inadequate funding to invention. So that was basically my basic review of the policy actions, saying that they are very crucial, they're very important. I named a few that are very have been identified as those that can actually help to transform the system towards circularity. Now let's look at the Finnish example and on the collaboration. So Finland is a front runner in the strategic promotion of circular economy, and it was the first country to draft the national circular economy roadmap in 2016. But before I continue, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction. How Finns, what is the Finnish way? Because the instruments and the way how Finns approach circular economy is rooted into their kind of nature as the society. So Finns know how to work together, because after the World War II, they also had, many men died in the war, and Finland had to pay reparations to Russia, or to Soviet Union, sorry. So the society, being like a very small country, they had to get together, learn how to work together, and how to become the society that we know it as now. So they are very good in collaboration. Collaboration is extremely valued. So that is why you can find collaboration across industry, across sector. Collaboration comes very natural. Like in Ukraine, we need the war to start collaborating, but in Finland, it's a natural thing. Then business is increasingly aware of the harmfulness of current use solutions. Consumers are very aware, and this is because Finns love nature, and they even vote that animals should have the same rights as people. They're very nature oriented, so that's why consumers are aware, and of course owners of the business are aware, because that's part of their culture. Then another very important part of their society that what Ukraine lacks currently, it's lots of associations and unions, trade unions, professionals, worker unions. So the society is very well organized, and that helps the government to keep the dialogue. And also Finns trust the government. Unlike Ukrainians, Finns, trust associations, their representatives, their parliament members, their president. The support is immense. And of course, the final thing that you probably heard, that the sisu, this is kind of a national character of Finland. It's about basically determination, the desire to achieve the purpose, bravery, resilience. So if you don't know the word, learn it. It's a good one. So I skipped the policies that Finland has. If then you have the presentation, you can follow the links. But what I want to briefly describe you is their kind of common approach to the circularity. It's called Green Deal Finland. It's it's not part of the European Green Deal. It's just their own thing, Green Deal in Finland. And it's a voluntary agreement between the state and the body representing business, industry sector, or a group of municipalities. So it's not government, between the government and a particular business, but between the government and association of businesses or association of municipalities. And the goal is to take joint action to promote sustainable development goals, and two focuses that they have, it's climate change and circular economy. And this voluntary agreement, it supplements those policy actions that Finland currently have. But as part of the negotiations, the goals that are set are more ambitious than even the government currently requires. And of course, this Green Deal agreement, it's part of the larger Sustainable Development Goal Initiative. So what is being done? So first, this Green Deal considers whether there's this kind of body that analyzes whether the Green Deal is applicable to solve a particular problem, or then they negotiate with the association of a business or a municipality, and they set very concrete objectives and measures, role, reporting and monitoring mechanism, and then plan future measures. So there is this process, which is like the same for everyone. And the point is that it's the governments and this association of businesses that negotiate together. It's not the government says that you need to do that, but it's like constant negotiations. So government learns from business what is possible, and business understands the necessity and why government is doing that. And the government understands what kind of support is needed. So this is kind of a very interesting example. And then individual companies, which are part of these associations, then they take these actions and they implement it, and they sign this commitment that they are going to follow what has been agreed between the government and the association. And of course, then the results are published on the particular site, which is called Commitment 2050. Yeah, so this graph shows the same. It's like common goal, common rules, criteria and objectives, and measures, and then basically companies, regions, municipalities, they agree and develop their individual actions. So if you think what kind of sectors, what is current circular economy in Finland is focused on, it's buildings, it's soil and rock material, it's production and circular materials, it's sustainable consumption, business and sharing economy, resource-wise energy production, and renewing food chain. So it resembles pretty much what Darius just showed before. So currently there are 3,054 commitments, and this commitment has been around for only, I think, 2 or 3 years. And another thing that I really want to highlight, which I think Ukrainian society is a little bit lacking, is that all these initiatives, they are collaborative and voluntary, but there is a very strong leadership from the government. So Minister of Environment is really taking the leadership role. Also Minister of Economic Affairs and Employment, and Agriculture and Forestry and Transport and Communication. So these are like 4 leading ministries, but Ministry of Environment is really the key. And then there are these public companies, like state-owned companies that support, for instance, Business Finland. It provides funds for innovation, including for research. And there it's important that any research which is being done in Finland and funded by Business Finland, it has to have a consortium with business. And business has to say that, yes, we are interested in this research and we are going to test this research. We're going to apply this research and produce the results and show you. So researchers never do research just for the sake of research. It's all very, very applied. Then there is the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, very powerful organization that provides policy advices and to business and government. Motiva, which is basically a state company that deals with sustainable use of energy and materials. And Circular Economy Finland, it's basically a hub a network that supports basically education and networking. And education and networking is done on 3 groups: municipalities, know-how and education, and digital solutions. And they also help to find financing, Green Deal, and circular economy, and support to finish industrial symbiosis systems. Another interesting center is KNO. It's Competence Center for Sustainable Public Procurement and Innovative Public Procurement. And this instrument has been very crucial for circular economy. And I think also in Ukraine, I'll say a few words just later, but just show you that in KNO, the stakeholders, the founders are all kind of state-owned companies. So it's kind of the institutional infrastructure is very well developed, and because people know how to collaborate, they never compete, but they together very determinedly, they're very determined to achieve a common goal for the country. And I think this is something that we can learn as the country, following the example that we have, how we all together fight the war. We can all together rebuild the country, because you know that in the public procurement system there has been already some advancement in green public procurement system. There are criteria developed. There are already even this green criteria introduced to the ProZorro procurement system. I'm not sure whether there are any pilot projects have been already completed, but it's there. It's already developed by the support of UNEP. So, and finally, I just want to conclude, and sorry for rushing because it's like lots of information I really wanted to share with you, that current international policy efforts in transforming the circular economy are not resultative enough. So when in Ukraine we'll start doing it, we don't have to be ashamed of anything. We can learn from the experience and say that, hey, we are like everybody else almost, but we have actually very good start because we need to relaunch many processes and rebuild the country. Then this 9R conceptual framework helps really to prioritize transformative policy efforts away from recycling, away from energy to waste, but to something more like with shorter loops and that preserves value. And also Finland, as a pioneer, could be an example for Ukraine. But we have to understand their peculiarities as a society. So maybe voluntary agreements might not be that useful for Ukraine because we don't have that trust into the government. It's a society, it's not our nature. But what I think we should do, we should try to utilize the strong characteristics of our nation, who we are, what are kind of best features that this war brought in us, and try to use this international experience in implying. And finally, but I do think these voluntary agreements are very good to start building the trust between the government and between the different business associations, and trying to also strengthen these associations or municipalities. Because this way we also can, as a society, build common vision, what we want to build, then together commit, and then implement what we have committed to do. That's it. It has been very quick, I know, but I really wanted to cover quite a few things. If you have any questions, I'm available not only on this webinar, but on social media, on email. So please just let me know if you would like to know more. In my presentations, I also have all the links. So then you can follow and research yourself if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Olena, for a very comprehensive and rich presentation. You gave us a plethora of information and various policy sort of checklists, which could be somehow implemented in the Ukrainian reality. Obviously, the Finns, and I'm using a lot of Finnish examples and materials, are really advanced, and they are thinking in a comprehensive way. But I wanted to stress a couple of things that, yes, we have to learn from those who are implementing it well in a comprehensive way, but we have to start somewhere. So we have to adopt certain policies which are conducive to a quick transition. We have to concentrate on areas which are easy to implement and show the way how it could be done. I'm very glad that you mentioned one particular aspect, which is financing, because obviously you can finance a few projects from the concessionary financing, from grants, but to make it sustainable, you need to have a flow of financing. And can you comment how you see Ukrainian financial system within this context? I'm not saying that, you know, it's an easy thing, because circular economy changes the business model, changes the flow of cash. The cash is, for example, if it is service, the cash is coming from paying for services rather than selling the product. So sometimes financial institutions are actually puzzled, you know, how to assess the risk and what to do. Can you briefly comment? Because obviously in Finland, you've got a number of the institutions which are helping others, you know, to implement the measures.
Well, that's a very comprehensive question. Honestly, I cannot say that I know all the answers, but I know for sure that green financing is still underutilized in Finland too. Of course, they know how to finance innovations. There is lots of funds for innovations, for research and development, and also with cooperation with businesses, that's for sure. I'm not sure that our business knows how to do that. So how to cooperate with government, with universities, because I'm really amazed, people, that there is no research for the sake of research. All research in Finland has to contribute to business. And this is where it's got kind of green funding from the government, of course. In terms of the private investment, I think banks play the crucial role. I don't see that Finnish banks are quite like there. Venture funds, yes. I've seen that there are some venture funds that support circular kind of projects, but banks are still not there. But I see that increasingly, you know, government is speaking about banks to fund, you know, this kind of activities. But of course, unlike in Ukraine, I think with the instability of financial systems, I think relying on the Ukrainian banks, we shouldn't. But I think that, you know, the scheme that used to work was before the war through EBRD, when EBRD would provide loans to the Ukrainian banks, kind of to distribute and work with small and medium enterprises, that's kind of a good working scheme. Because with the newly, like, if there is this recovery fund established, I do believe that all these funds need to be challenged through existing institutions, and there is no need to develop something new. We have banks, let's channel the money from the banks. We have, of course, it would be good to create more kind of venture capital support for very innovative kind of businesses types. But honestly, that's not kind of my piece, and I don't know how to do that. But I think this is what is lacking. So again, working through the banks, that's a good solution, but there is a need for external funding. Local investments, I don't think that we will have a lot of them. So attracting international investments, that would be the key. And for that, we would need a lot of government instruments like guarantees, like really robust policy framework that will ensure that investors and banks will get their money back. And from those, and that's why I was making this presentation and talking about the policy instruments like green public procurement. You know, you create the demand for green goods and services. Or we already have some actually advances in design standards. Like, yes, let's have a requirement that every building which is going to be rebuilt after the war, like 5, 10, 50% should be recycled, right? So, and that will be in it will be part of the public procurement, and there will be building standards designed for that. So it has to be very comprehensive. It has to be policy actions combined with available green financing.
Many
I hope I
thanks
answered, but it's very complex. What do you think?
Well, you know,
Darius,
I simply didn't want to leave this untouched. You know, because we can have sustainable economy only when we have sustainable financing, when you have actually a steady flow of financing and it makes sense from the business perspective. But for your information, there is a working group at the European Union level on actually sustainable financing, particularly for these type of activities. So watch this space, and we will have to learn, all of us. No one has a panacea how to actually solve it at this stage, but it's an issue to make it sustainable. Many thanks once again for your presentation, and of course we'll have some time at the end for further questions from the audience. Without further ado, can I ask Andriy to tell us what he is doing and what his organization and what are his thoughts about Ukrainian opportunities? Andriy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Darius. Thank you, Olena, for her presentation. My slides are correlate with previous speakers, and I think they add something, some angle to all of that. So my name is Andriy Gnat. I'm indeed CEO of startup Waste Ukraine Analytics and expert on open data, and I hope in circular economy as well. And each of my presentation, I start with a famous quote of American economist who was responsible for recovery of Japan's economy after World War II. And he said that without the data, you're just another person with opinions. So my activities is heavily involved with argumentation to all of that. So one of the definition of circular economy, because there's quite of them which are focused on a different thing, but I just sort of bring up this one, which I think relates properly in terms of what in focus of circular economy in terms of reduce, reuse, recycle materials in production, distribution, and consumption that we could have in mind. And now we see in Ukraine that this sort of transition in reform of waste management, where all the policy are focusing to become more like recycling economy, and we must think how to we prevent waste, and I will talk about that, and come to more circular economy. And this picture, I think, represented quite clearly. And there's clear understanding that this is a complex issue, and it needs some action from all of the actors in terms of private entrepreneurs, in terms of local authorities, what they can do, how the end customers can change their behavior habits in terms of how they use products and goods. So circular economy, it's ask a question to each one of them, of this operator, and we must think of this transition as the complex issue. As Olena mentioned before, the whole law and legal umbrella for this transition, it's a lot of efforts in EU, around the globe, and of course, Circular Economy Action Plan is one of that, and Ukraine must meet these terms criteria as future member of EU, and we see our recommendation, our activities as part of that. And as other colleagues mentioned earlier, there already been some research, and they show that 80% of environmental impact of the products, they are on design stage. So this is logically that companies and businesses are focusing on that stage as well, and rethink their business models, not just only like margin, their profits, but in terms of prevention of using too much materials, use too much energy, and keep the products as long as possible in the economy. And of course, this kind of mindset, it can be applicable to different sort of product, services, goods, is low value, high value in different sort of business and customer, business and government communication. And this is another angle of this complex issue where all participants hardly involved. And of course, as were mentioned before, there are different kind of design strategy who can slow down material flow, narrow it, or close this loop, and can be implemented. And already colleague mentioned it. So efforts for businesses, for government must be on supporting this kind of design strategies. And as Darius already mentioned, example about sharing cars. My favorite example is about sharing drill. So do we really need drill, or do we need hole in the wall? Most often we just need holes in the wall when we're building something, and it's quite cheaper to rent specific equipment. And if we scale this kind of approach and future resource materials, equipment of rebuilding Ukraine, how much it will be less money spending if we use sharing equipment to rebuild all of that. So this is just one angle of that. And of course, we can think about repairing materials, use some sort of product as their services, and use industrial symbiosis, repeat production, reuse, recycling, of course, as part of the marketing strategy of the products. And another angle for many Ukrainian companies which are struggling in building factories, that when product remanufactured for second time, it's already proven that it uses less energy, products, materials, and it could have return of investment quite quicker. So we can keep this in mind. And of course, to all the already been said in terms of obstacle, I just want to point it. There's of course problem with finance, and slides from our colleague represent some research on categorization of circular economy project. There's 14 categories, which was designed by specialists of European Investment Bank that can be supported if they meet some criteria. And one of my recommendation, and I will talk about a little further, to use this kind of criteria in all national plans to build this kind of project. There's of course difficulties with structure, how to build a project in terms of long run, how to bring up the team and the resource. And of course, one of that is attitude, what we are trying to change right now to give them more angle and wide understanding of circular economy and their concepts. And of course, technologies in wide term, in digital technologies, recycling technology, repairing, and things like that. So there's quite a demand on that, what we can discuss and what needed and will be needed in Ukraine and their recovery. And a couple of words, important notes in terms of business and their transition in terms of Industry 4.0, which show that it's not give as much result as is wanted by governments of the countries. And now it's more like agenda of Industry 5.0, where it's added with thoughts about using materials quite more efficiently, not only just to like give digitalization to all of that. And through this monitoring process, all of that what involved to maintenance and new data models about how to predict some issues in the production process. It goes how do we use these materials in general in production. And the key points that I want to bring in terms of Industry 4.0, that all of these efforts, they're focusing on understanding location of specific asset and material, understand its state. Is it broken? Is it close to be broken, or it's properly working? Or understand, is it asset available? It can be share, reuse from any operation. So this is more analytical approach. And as Darius mentioned, we need a lot of digital solution. And I hope my colleague Mikhailo after me on this presentation highlight all of this deeper, but we really need a solution to trace materials, to enter the single EU market, a more transparent value chain, to share information about the products, about the companies into the chain, and about their resources. So we, as the system, become more circular. And of course, a couple of words in terms of digital solution that should be implemented in the near future. This one is example of material passport for building, and there's already some working groups in Ukraine who are working on green building in general term, and can use a project like Building as Material Bank, who showed quite good results a couple of years ago, and EU. And of course, part of directive on eco-design is digital product passport, which can help shift the customer behavior in terms of what we know about this product, environmental printing, and of course, clear recommendation how to repair it, reuse it, or recycle this material. And digital solutions and maybe possible integration into DIA in Ukraine could help this a lot in Ukraine. And of course, all of these approaches in terms of analysis, it could help us with our dialogue between businesses, between civil society, between authorities, when we argument in terms of statistics and analytics, because we want to avoid this kind of situation when without the data, it just decision to authorities, and there's no proper dialogue. And of course, as Darius mentioned, we should accept that circular economy is irreversible global megatrend, and we should use this opportunity as pioneers and get more benefit from that. And our company already do some step. Waste Ukraine Analytics, this is a platform for matchmaking companies on fields of waste management based on open data. And we work heavily with local communities, with businesses in their communities, to be this like third party who see the big picture and help each one of the members of this network ecosystem to make proper steps in terms of circular economy. And one of our activities with authorities on a national level, we are now finishing big research in terms of recommendation how to use open data and different sort of IT system to support this transition to circular and low carbon economy, whereas be a lot about mandatory data set disclosure information about different sectors that already Darius mentioned: vehicles, food, plastic, electronic equipment, etc. And of course, recommendation to Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Economic, how to build analytical models, how to take proper data, for example, use environmental impact and sustainability light generalized model. Sorry for that long name, but this is like commonly used economic model who helps to build scenarios of this circle and low carbon transition on macro scale, and we recommend to use it. And of course, I want to bring up one of my personal project what was finished back in June, months ago. This was project about creating data sets on landfills, on different waste management facility, on information which was held by Ministry of Environment. and we gathered about 5,000 objects and create data sets with 25.5 million unique records about this facilities and object, and it lasts about 20 years. 20 years of observation. It can be used for any donors and partners to clearly understand the trends and the difference on quantitative approaches in terms of waste management. And of course, I will be happy to communicate with listeners today to discuss our activities more broadly, our joint efforts to coordinate on national, local level, and with businesses as well, then to share this information. I hope I do my presentation quite quickly, so we be in a timing.
Thank you very much, Andrei. This was a very nice presentation. And the key message I understood is, don't take random decisions based the decision on the data availability. So I know that you haven't done yet in Ukraine the proper mapping of circularity, but according to what you know at this stage, what would be the priority sectors for you in Ukraine where you would see the immediate possibilities of implementing circularity measures?
So if this was my choice, I choose the same sectors that you mentioned is like key value change in terms of food, in terms of agriculture, because it's Ukraine has a lot of product and exports capability in terms of that. But of course, that's textile, that's just solid state waste and packaging, plastic, in terms of that, because if we can handle this kind of type, there will be a lot of possibility to manage whole waste management sphere, and already in place the bill about packaging in Ukraine and how to can deal with that. And of course, there's a lot of industrial waste, like specific, there's a whole different story, like legacy waste on many coils and things like that we just should handle, because there's quantities of them, it's on margin bigger than just regular citizens solid state waste. So this is not a simple task about priority, but in general, we must think how to use existing data to analyze it and make a decision about like proportion ratio, about that waste that we are 100% sure and know about. I can easily use this, and thank God we have this kind of information in our authorities. Our experts can make a different sort of project on which material flow they should approach first, second, and third wave. Yeah.
Many thanks, Andrei. I guess that also construction industry would be one of the key targets,
of course, yes.
For various reasons. All right, thank you very much for this. So at last but not least, Mihailo, how about you tell us a bit about the role of open data and circular economy and about digital platforms. The floor is yours, Mihailo.
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, thank you to Mr. Andrei and to Mrs. Olena for their presentation. And if we talk about the circular economy and low carbon economy in Ukraine and Ukrainian approach into changing its traditional economy to a circular economy, we need some policy paper. And if we talk about European Union and our European integration processes, I think that first of all, we must adopt our action plans on, first of all, environmental protection and also for economical and forced post-war reconstruction and development, with the strong focus on circular and low carbon economy. And I hope that Ukraine will be a part of European Green Deal. And if we talk about European Green Deal, the key role in action plans on implementation of Green Deal is to open data. As the previous speaker mentioned, that the best, I think, definition of circular economy is that it is the end to from beginning to end life process of some product. So we can reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover materials in the production, distribution, and consumption processes. And it's very similar to open data, because the main feature of open data is it possible to be use and reuse by another stakeholders and by other users of such value of open data. And of course, open data contribute to fostering the circular economy in three important ways. First of all, open data in circular economy can product a more sustainable food system. If we talk about Ukraine and full-scale Russian aggression to Ukraine, it's not very similar to our nowadays problem. But if we remember the grain deal and other food problems in the world, we must analyze open data and first of all collect some data on food system, food ecosystem, agriculture data that Mr. Andriy mentioned before is the key data sets and key spheres for us to development, first of all, standards for collecting and publishing open data, and also for reusing it in circular economy process. The next big step is efficient resource management and waste optimization. And one more time, I want to thank to Mr. Andriy Gnap with his work. As you know, last year, Ministry of the Digital Transformation was the first central government authority, I think, that locomotive with Mr. Andriy of circular economy in Ukraine, and together with our international donors, first of all, transparency and accountability in public services, in public administration and services, TAPAS project, and East Europe Foundation. We are working on developing some standards for data sets concerning to waste management and using of natural resource optimization. And in the end of June this year, Mr. Andriy present the first data set, not with this project, but concerning the waste management process in Ukraine. And everybody now can use this data and create some plans for optimal resource management and, of course, waste optimization. And, of course, open data in circular economy helps to protect our natural environment and reduce the air pollution, water pollution, and any other types of pollution. And why it is very important to use open data nowadays in Ukraine to build a circular and low carbon economy? I guess the full-scale war with its scariness gives us some chances to rebuild a new country without traditional approaches to economy process. And now we have a chance to analyze all previously collected data on our economy spheres and make data-driven decision-making process and some decision based on data and open data to, first of all, how to rebuild Ukraine and how to rebuild Ukraine in a proper, clear and transparent and accountable way. I guess the last but not the least, because I'm lack of time, I remember we are working on action plan to build a list of high value open data sets, and I one more time thank to Mr. Andriy for the proposition to this data sets, and together with state statistical services, first of all, and our other stakeholders. Now we are working on some standards and first of all policy documents for starting collecting open data on circular economy, on production, goods production, of course, and other important things. So we are open to future cooperation, to further cooperation, and I guess Ukraine have a chance to demonstrate the whole world how to build a new type of economy relations and how to make our country with the future of our country is circular and low carbon economy. So I will also share a presentation for organizers, and thank you for your attention. If you have some questions, I will glad. Yeah, thank you.
Many thanks, Mihailo. It was very clear, and actually, before we go to the questions, I mean, there was a certain coherent message from all of you that we need data, we need open access to data, and this is a great chance for Ukraine in these tragic circumstances of the whole full-scale war imposed on your country by Russia, that you have a chance to rebuild your country differently. So when I mentioned in my introduction that there are certain technologies which not do things slightly better, but they do things differently, you have a chance now to do things differently in Ukraine, and this was a very consistent message from all the speakers. So ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank wholeheartedly all speakers, and we will go to the question time, which we already received some questions from the audience before and currently. And if you don't mind, as I have the floor, there was one question asking me specifically to share my experience about what happened in Georgia during the past 4 years. I had the privilege to work on a program supported by the Swedish government over there, and it started with first of all with actions by the Georgian government, who enacted extended producers' responsibility within the waste management code already in 2018. This was the time that actually it was enacted by the European Union and transposed very quickly into legislation. Why I'm stressing this? Because this was an element which was conducive to starting entrepreneurship. Many small and medium-sized enterprises saw an opportunity to actually provide services to the companies producing goods, that they can actually provide service for this, either repair service or handle the materials. So this started in 2018. In 2019, we started the general awareness program. But this was, and this is part of what is happening now. We have an awareness program for those who subscribe to this seminar, but you need much more. You need, and what we did over there, we had targeted audiences. Targeted audiences, we had policymakers, we had project developers, businesses, small and medium-sized enterprises, universities, financial institutions. So there was like a targeted type of information, what can be done, in particular financial institutions, how they should learn how to actually finance type of projects. And then at certain stage during this awareness, the government realized that we have to know where we are. So they launched the mapping. Mapping lasted 2 years when we mapped the economy with highlighting the key sectors for improvements. And it showed that Georgian economy is not circular at all. It's 1.3% circular. But there was great potential in several areas to increase the circularity rapidly. And there was one of the sectors, which actually there was a question from the audience here, was actually agribusiness fruit processing, food processing. Georgia is an agricultural country, and we looked at this from the perspective, not just utilizing biomass for composting, but rather focusing on value added. So where was this value added? For example, in fruit processing, there were rejects which could be used for production of pectins. Pectin are used in pharmaceutical and cosmetic industries, and you can access the market. This is where we started to actually mapping this, developing a pipeline of projects, because we realized that when we go to the parliament for approval of the strategy, we have to have a pipeline of viable projects. Otherwise, if you cannot touch, if you cannot see, it doesn't appeal to the audience that much. So there was a pipeline of these projects with business plans. And here we encountered difficulties. Difficulties, first of all, we need to finance this project. Of course, you can mobilize a grant here and there, but banks started to look at these projects as corporate financing in opposition to project financing. That means they were checking all the financials of the company and giving them money for whatever the purpose. While the projects in circular economy, they had payback period of about 2 to 3 years, which is very fast. What we saw that there is a need for clear further capacity building within financial institutions, but also helping companies, businesses to conceive projects, to structure project in a way that it is understood by financial institutions. And this is what happened. And this is, I think, that may actually, there was a question, how do I see it in Ukrainian? This is these advisory services, incubators where particularly small businesses, they can have access to technology information, to how to structure the project, how to obtain financing, how to approach financial institutions. This can be easily a potential initiative program for Ukraine. So this is what I can share. Moreover, I want to share a couple of sort of softer things. First of all, there were champions. And within the Ministry of Environment, we had Deputy Minister who was clearly devoted circular economy champion. You need always to find someone. So my advice would be, within the Ukrainian government, you have brilliant people there. Find someone, tell and try to work on a person to convince the person that circular economy is the way to go, no other way. And then when you create such a champion, everything becomes better. So for example, when I was working on mapping there, I was able to have 13 experts working on mapping, but the government created a sounding board, coordination board consisting of across the whole government, from Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance, Statistical Office, a group of 35 experts who worked with my experts, and we managed after 2 years to have meaningful results. So again, we have to think through system. We have to approach this in a systematic way, and we have to have this enthusiasm and championship. So this is probably what I wanted to say about the success of the program in Georgia. Having the floor, I wanted to say one more thing. There was also a question about sharing industrial platforms. And this, Olena may know about this, but Citra, Finnish Innovation Fund, they publish 100 most successful companies, information about them on their websites. And there was a fantastic company which did not own any assets, but was utilizing assets of other companies. So for example, if a company had a foundry and someone needed to have something cast, they were utilizing the unused capacities of various industrial plants. So it was a digital platform who was enabling production utilizing unused industrial capacities. Again, could be a good idea for Ukraine. So this is, the question that I have seen. I'm just looking at other questions. There was, again, questions about the construction industries. Any one of the speakers would like to say something about construction industries?
If I may. Okay. The first one, I know that Olena could say something relevant as well, but I just want in detail. Since last week, there's already working group on technical committee 82, specifically on green construction. And we are working on standards in Ukraine to adopting international standards association and other standards when we can implement all of that. And the digital component, which specifically I'm responsible on in terms of this work. So we already working on that. And of course, mapping of companies who can be involved and why, and here they like business side. So this work already made. Some of that led by Svetlana Berezina. It's quite famous civil society activist. She is in, I think, a public council of Ministry of Environment in Ukraine. And if one of the listeners want to know more about our work, please contact me. I will be glad to share this information and to give our highlight on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Andriy. I don't see any other questions at this stage. Victoria, do we have any other questions at this stage?
No, there are no questions.
Okay, look, we will circulate to the participants the presentations, and as Olena mentioned, the presentations include also the links to live information on various things. I strongly recommend, as we had this Finnish component, to look at Citra website. It's a very useful source of information where you can come up with ideas. And the ideas are sometimes as simple like 3 ladies who decided to produce patches to repair clothes. And they started this 3 years ago, and now this is a successful company with outlets selling their patches with various colors, and it could be a fashion statement. And the business is thriving. So there are fantastic examples. It's worth sometimes to look at this. So with this, let me thank to all speakers for sharing this fantastic information. Let me also thank those who are behind the scenes, Victoria, Jana, and of course Alina, who came up with this initiative of sharing this information. Thank you very much indeed, and have a good afternoon, and till next time.